coaching, kind of life coaching really. The first 18 months of that was all phone work, and then did, you know, various other courses to support that, like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and so on. And ended up specialising as a relationship coach. And sure enough, a year or so on from that, I went into a crisis because of, well, I didn't know why I went into a crisis at the time, and it didn't feel like a crisis, if I'm honest. I had some spiritual experiences which were very spontaneous. I felt very euphoric. I had 4 months, felt absolutely amazing, but also my values were changing overnight. And so things like marriage didn't seem that important anymore. I saw life differently, kind of quite spontaneously, really. And I didn't really know why, but I knew that something wasn't kind of normal, but it was kind of really nice at the same time. In retrospect, I've realised that that was all triggered by a shock that I had, a kind of a trauma, but I wouldn't say it was a huge trauma, but it was a trauma in my life, which had been very happy and stable. So I've been happily married for 23 years and had a very sort of kind of content childhood. But when I was at a party earlier that year, my uncle's birthday party, 90th birthday, I was introduced to a man who looked very much like my dad, who had already passed away about, you know, quite a few years earlier. But he looked like my dad. He's sort of the same age as my older dad, if you know what I mean. And I was introduced to him, and that was uncanny how much he looked like my dad. But I was introduced to him as my half brother, and I hadn't known he had existed. So for the next 48 hours, a whole lot of revelations and sort of family secrets came out about what I thought was real wasn't real anymore. So I was kind of introduced precariously through that experience by a dad that I didn't know, if you know what I mean. And I felt huge compassion for this brother of mine. He didn't know the lovely dad that I had. He had only sort of met him 4 times over his life, really. So it was revealed that my dad had been married before, which was an absolute shock, because I was kind of brought up to believe that, you know, that you don't divorce, you just don't do that kind of stuff. And anyway, so lots of other things sort of revealed themselves. So I was consciously dealing with the shock of that. I was consciously dealing with my anger. My mum knew about all this the whole time and kind of kept that secret. And I was very close to my mum, so that was shocking as well. And my new brother had known about us all his life, but we hadn't known about him. So I think, you know, obviously in retrospect, I know that was the trigger. That was the traumatic event that probably caused me to have these strange and wonderful experiences. So what that was leading to was feeling very alone with my experiences, because I was beginning to sort of feel ridiculed and not understood by my family. And my bigger family, my mum and my brothers, were thinking I was losing it, really, because they were very atheist. They didn't have any understanding or empathy for anything spiritual at all, really. They were very scientific and sort of military background and all that kind of stuff. So very alone, and I connected with a man who did understand all that and completely accepted it all. And I knew there were some dangers around that because of this connection and the lack of connection I was feeling with my husband. So I waited until a holiday and talked to my husband about it all and what was going on. But ultimately, that led to my husband kind of not understanding me and kind of being scared of my changes and spirituality. So I felt very abandoned and very alone. Ended up leading to a separation, and ultimately it led up to the breakup of our family. But because of that all happening, I wanted to understand what was going on, and I needed help. I was very alone with it all. So I did find a group. I was very blessed to find a group at a nearby kind of healing centre, which I just spontaneously went to explore, and ended up joining this group of people because the moment I went in, the couple that ran this place was. I sort of said a couple of things, and they immediately understood where I was coming from, and they asked me questions which made me know that they knew that it was okay and that someone else, you know, had been through this before. So they invited me to basically join this group called Spiritual Companions. And that was so huge for me because I felt understood, I felt safe, I felt supported, I felt affirmed and validated, all the things that that I'm sure you've been talking about and been feeling recently. And I, again, as like Susie, I wanted to go and offer that to other people. So I started running the group, and partly through Kate's encouragement, ran this group, and it organically grew. And basically it was a weekly group for about 2 years, where we just shared our experiences, our views on what our experiences were, and we became very strongly connected. So that was a huge support as well. Although I was running the group, it was a support for me too. And I also wanted to understand what had happened to me, hence I did psychospiritual counselling and lots of other courses, and started researching spiritual crisis network research, etc., to understand the what happened to me sort of spiritually, emotionally, mentally, etc. So that's why I've got that understanding that it was probably the trauma of meeting my brother that triggered everything. I then went on, because I then, it was about 2 years later, went through the divorce process, and in that became a trainer for an organisation called Mindspan, which is a really good training organisation, a really good training programme. But as far as the business of running that was concerned, I found it a bit of a struggle, and over the last 2 years I've realised it's not me. So although I've learned a lot from the training aspect and the programme is brilliant, I don't really want to be running businesses to help companies make more money, essentially. So there's been a big shift there's been a gradual shift really over the last couple of years. But through this year, I've been developing a project which has been inspired by everything in my life, really. And it's called Kinder Listening. I don't know if Kate has introduced that to you at all, but yeah. So that's been developed by my inspiration, by the skills that I've developed over the years, my innate skills as well. But also, I guess more recently, more powerfully, going to the Recovery College conference, the Open Dialogue conference, and Katie's Emerging Proud. You know, the one key thing there's two key things that seems to come out of all of this is that people going through this kind of crisis need to feel heard, and they need to have a safe space to feel heard. So because of my background, I remember doing the coaching diploma. The one module that I remember thinking was, wow, that was amazing, was the module on listening. And it's like, we can all listen, but no one's taught how to listen. So even at that time, 10 years ago, I thought in schools it shouldn't be, you know, part of a diploma course. It should be out there. And then all the, you know, coaching and the counselling. And then even in Mindspan, one of the courses that I ran in that, I was actually asked by a company I was working with over a couple of years. The board of directors asked me to develop a training on listening for their board, because they were all talking over each other and not communicating well. So all of this inspired me to start this project and develop a training process to really spread the idea of listening and to enhance listening in the community. And while doing that, you know, Katie had been doing this amazing work with her Emerging Proud film, and also looking to take that project on and looking for where this is going to go. So I thought, actually, this, you know, one thing that is needed is the listening. I know I can come up with something and offer that. Was developing the project, and so it kind of all came together. And as Katie and I have talked a lot while, you know, she's been involved with you guys in developing this emerging kind training. So I've been hearing about the challenges and sort of realising, well, I teach that in the Kinder Listening groups. So it's almost a seamless sort of foundation that it sounds like it will alleviate and develop the skills sort of as a foundation. It really isn't developing skills, because you all have listening skills. It's just reminding you of what they are and maybe enhancing them a little bit, if you know what I mean, because we've got into bad habits because of the way society's going. So that's kind of where it's at, really. And I'm really, again, just working with Elizabeth as well, it's been a very collaborative process. There'll be, you know, the way Assist are doing it is solid for America. It obviously didn't fit over here in just because of the logistics and the different rules and regulations. So it just feels very organic and collaborative, how it's developing. So hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Linda.
So yeah, what I guess that's all right. Yeah, what I discovered with my experience is that my experiences, I think, were I managed just about to not use psychiatric services, and I think that's because I found this group quite early on, and I think that's what saved me from needing psychiatric services. But what I've discovered talking to Spiritual Crisis Network and researching in mental health since then is that the dynamic is exactly the same. So the process of what people are going through is the same, and I can kind of see that and make sense of it.
Thank you. I think the thing that really stands out for me about and kind of excites me about bringing you on board and what would seem to be missing, you know, the challenges, and it was nobody's fault, it was just kind of, it's how it all unfolded, was the element of kind of recognizing at being able to create that safe space within us before we can create the safe space without. So Linda's training will really kind of focus on that, listening to our own triggers coming up, sharing how we communicate our triggers and creating that safe space within before people then go on to do the peer group facilitator training. So it feels like a really kind of solid foundation. So that's going to be the process for next year. So so what we're doing at the moment, well, what Linda's doing at the moment is creating webinars on your kind of listening training, aren't you? So all of you
all the kind of training at the moment has been done in Norwich face to face, and it's all very new. Actually, it's only started in October, so it's all very new. I'm enhancing it and tweaking it as I go along based on the feedback and how it's going, obviously. So there's a realization, obviously, with you guys and with the next cohort that you're not going to be able to come to a face-to-face training, so we need to make it online. So I'm working on that at the moment to talk through the webinars, talk through the presentations, so that it can be done in that way. And I'll create some sort of reflections, not homework exactly, but stuff to show, learning opportunities, so that once you've seen some, you can then just write a few little bits and pieces that show me you've got it, if you know what I mean, because we can't do that live face to face. So I'm not quite sure exactly how many webinars there'll be and how that will work out, and it might be tweaked specifically as well for the emerging kind training, as opposed to being a volunteer kind of listener, if you know what I mean. So there might be some slight amendments to that to make it really work for you guys going forward, or for the next cohort going forward. But obviously you'll get access to it it'll be, but it still have the benefit, hopefully.
We just thought it was important because obviously Elizabeth and I have been mentioning Linda to have a call and just introduce you so that you know who Linda is, you know who we're talking about, a bit about.
Do you want to ask me anything or chat?
I just want to say that this is really exciting. It sounds so great. Like, it sounds like it's going to complement the training we've done so perfectly. Just sounds like, I don't know, that it was like a match made to happen between your guys' projects.
It does seem like that. It's just
hasn't it?
Yeah.
Have you been doing the kind of listening training in at the cafe in Norwich?
Yes, the kind of cafe. Where are you from, Ellie?
Oh, I live in Worcester at the moment. But I was kind of volunteering with the Kind of Village project for a while.
Wow, fantastic.
But it turned out that me and Hugh worked in very different ways.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm not there anymore. But yeah, I know I went to the cafe quite a few times.
Fantastic.
So do you do it like there every week?
No, I'm doing it. I'm sort of organising a training when I have enough people, basically, and when I can logistically do it. So it's not a set time or set date.
So it's like a one-off training each time.
Exactly. Yeah. At the moment, that's how it's working. So I think I've got 5 on a waiting list now for the next one. So it's just a question of putting a date together for that.
It goes like it's just like for a day.
It's yes, and I've changed that as we've gone along. So at the moment, I'm running it on 2 half days. It seems to be more palatable to do it over 2 days rather than trying to do one big long day. So sort of 2 half days at the moment, or I think we were doing it over 2 evenings. I think we'll probably move it over to 3 evenings because actually the content is quite it seemed to keep adding to it, to be honest.
I totally want to come to Norwich and come to this.
Oh,
well, actually, that's something that I'd like to kind of obviously give you all the opportunity to introduce yourselves, but just something that we've been talking about. We had a steering group meeting yesterday, and I think it was you, Wendy, that suggested meeting in person, and we all think that idea is really important because you guys have been through so much, and it would be really good to kind of all meet in person, to meet Linda so that you know who you can call if there's an issue. But also to sort out the body system as well. So yeah, we were looking at dates for that, and it's a shame that not everybody's here, so we might need to look at that again on the 7th of December. But we were thinking of the 20th of January and possible venues, and the missing, I can never remember, the missing shoe, is it the missing shoe in Cambridge?
Sock.
Sock.
Missing
That's one option, but I wanted to see if anybody.
Actually, the cafe in Norwich.
Oh, that's right. That's why I get it confused.
That's Hugh's name for it, not anyone else's name.
Yeah. So if anybody can think of anywhere kind of central where we could all go to meet up, it's kind of between now and the 7th of December, it would be good, because we'd probably need to stay over for one night, I should imagine, because most of us would be travelling.
I think we'll go to Kind of Village. I know it's really far away.
Kind of Village. Yeah.
Katie, I can't make that. I've already committed to myself. I said I'd go and join the people at Safely Held Spaces.
The 20th, yeah.
They're having their first inaugural meeting that weekend.
Oh, they are. I forgot it clashed with that. Yeah. Okay. Well, when we're all together, there's a group called Safely Held Spaces that came out of Emerging Proud Day, and they're meeting down in Brighton. And I'd forgotten about. Thanks, Michelle. I'd forgotten about that. Maybe if we all have a think about the dates, and we could get something confirmed on the 7th when we meet on the 7th. Oh, you frozen? I think I'm frozen. Can you hear me?
We just do it pretty quickly. Book something, don't we?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know something.
I think I've frozen. Sorry. Yeah. Just to say that I
don't know where everyone lives, but I guess you're right. Sorry.
Say that again, Ellie?
I don't know where everyone lives, but I guess you're right that the missing sock is probably the most central place out of the missing kinds of Cambridge.
Yeah, we did. Hugh did say that we could use that venue. I don't know if you can hear me because my computer's freezing.
Yeah.
Well,
if Hugh says we can use it, that sounds good, really.
Yeah.
I suppose.
So we just need to come up with a date that everybody can make. Linda, can you hear me?
Yes.
It just said it's going to end in 9 minutes. I don't know if you can extend it.
Not on the free one.
No, I'm on a free one at the moment.
You extended it before.
I did, and it's not giving me an option to do that. We'll do in a minute, maybe.
May I ask, is there a central location for like a hub of activity? Is it Norwich as such?
Yeah.
Is there maybe a few places we can visit in one visit, so to speak? Or I know it's just to get together, but I'd like to see the Emerging Kind, the Kind of Cafe and
the Kind of Cafe. I mean, it would be Norwich would be perfect because that's where most of the team are, and the Kind of Cafe is. It's just if we could find somewhere for everyone to stay, and it's obviously possible. Travel.
There is somewhere outside of the city, about 15 miles out, where we could stay, but there would be obviously there would be a charge for that. I don't know what the charge would be. I could look into that, I suppose.
Breathing space. Yeah, Ellie, you suggested breathing space, didn't you?
It's a wonderful venue
there. Maybe we should check out. Could you check out with Mags, maybe, Linda, if we could use that and how much she would charge? Because it would make sense if people are willing to come to Norwich. Kind of, be nice to show you where it's all happening.
And
I just wanted to let you know, by the way, that I'm recording because I wanted to send around Linda's story. Is that okay? Are you all okay with that?
Mhm. Yeah.
If you're not, if you just let me know.
So I'm just a bit confused because I thought we're doing the film screenings up in the monastery as well in January. That's separate. That's a separate thing.
We need to talk about that, Michelle.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought they were running the same.
Sorry? It's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
I'm just a bit confused as to whether they'll run over the same weekend, that's all.
Right.
But they won't.
Right. Well, no, we'll make sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while we're here, would you all like to? Would anyone else like to introduce yourself to Linda? It's nice to hear from Susie.
If we do run out of time, shall I just click on again and invite?
I think we can get back on the same link actually if it goes off.
Again, 10 minutes later, I think you have to have like a gap in between.
Unless you click us on.
We could have a tea break and then come back.
Yeah, we could.
Or you could click on us maybe on your link.
I could send another link around. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we do get cut off, apologies for that. I'll invest in a subscription. Very thrifty. So who would like to introduce next? Caroline, Darren, Wendy.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to say really because I'm very much still integrating the whole experience of the training, and there's a lot going on externally in my life. So I haven't got a lot of time to do that processing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this this longing to have the time to, even read the emails and do I hear everybody else's excitement and I kind of share that in a theoretical way, but I'm working full time and I'm setting up another business as well so that I can move into having more time and be more financially resourced. So, and I've got family commitments as well. So I'm integrating, trying to integrate the experience of the training and feel like I'm playing catch up. And yeah, I don't. That's unintegrated. That's where I am. It's all kind of in my head. Sure. So I think for me there are questions about how I take this forward in a way that feels grounded for me, and in a time that feels right as well, and the way that I want to take it forward. And I feel so, yeah, that's not so much an introduction from my past as a kind of where I am now. Yeah, that's anything, that's fine, but that kind of feels like what's important.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's fine, Wendy. There's no expectations to kind of get going with anything, you know, until you're ready. So,
but I can hear you're just sort of sitting on it, and like you say, waiting for that all to process. Well, when it can. So, and I can hear that there's a desire and a passion in there as well. Good stuff. What do you do for your full-time work?
So I work for an estate agent, and I'm just trained as a mortgage advisor. So I'm still working in the estate agents, and I'm setting up a self-employed business. But in my past, I've trained as a psychotherapist, so I've got a somatic psychotherapy qualification. And that's really where a lot of my passion was, but life interfered with me being able to do that. So I feel like I'm wanting to. This is kind of like revisiting some of that way of expressing myself in the world.
Sure. Yeah.
And I feel like I'm constantly saying to myself, no, not yet. Just have to be patient.
Yeah.
You have to be patient. You have to be patient. So I feel my impatience, but I also trust that it will unfold in the way that is right. And I do need to get my work-life balance more addressed first.
Yeah.
To give me that space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the foundation, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
I've just posted another Zoom link in the chat box. I think we're gonna get kicked off. It says less than a minute, so people can access that. Can you see that? Just before we go.
Are we taking a few minutes now, or are we just going straight back on?
Let's just jump straight back on, if that's okay.
Okay.
Because this is a shorter call, so yeah.
Okay.
We'll see you in there. Okay.
Brilliant.